Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Let's start with some good news. According to Ukraine's military, they've confirmed the death of Russian soldiers who killed Ukrainian prisoners of war. 4 days ago, this video went viral of 2 Ukrainian defenders who had run out of ammunition. Their dugout was surrounded by the Russians. They were ordered to come out with their hands up and surrender. The Ukrainian defenders complied, but the Russians ended up executing them anyways. You can't do this. This is a war crime. And I'm sure everyone in Ukraine's military has seen or heard of this video in the last 4 days. Everyone knows who the Russians really are. They fight without honor. They fight without decency. Their frontline soldiers are mostly made up of criminals, murderers, rapists, and even cannibals. But the good news is that this video was identified in Stepova. This is north of the city of Avdiivka. Ukraine later that day did counterattack, and all those Russians in that position were liquidated. So we can close the book on that war crime. While we're here, the city of Avdiivka continues to hold. I don't think that Putin is going to manage to take this city before announcing his re-election campaign in 10 days. So here's the scary headline from yesterday that we need to talk about. According to the White House, the United States to run out of money for Ukraine by the end of the year. And before we talk about US politics, I first want to remind everyone what's at stake here. What is this war really about, and what will come of it if Ukraine is not supported? So here's a clip from Kremlin State TV, and I'm going to read this for you. We, as a military scientific society, will look at the future of Europe after our victory, and we will say, well, look, there is this nice Austria, seemingly neutral. There is Slovakia, which said that it feels uncomfortable near the war in Ukraine, and it is better not to help it. There's Hungary, which also does not want to have anything to do with it. Then there is this whole area of the former Yugoslavia, Serbia. Let us make a neutral territory out of this Central Europe. A very good place, by the way. Let us make an Austro-Hungarian territory. Solyov is now laughing, saying, I've been waiting for someone to say that. Let's revive the great Austria-Hungary. We'll push the Habsburgs out of the ranks from Poland to the Mediterranean to the Baltics. We'll say, guys, we're not going to attack you. We'll even put our own contingent there so that no one will attack them either. So in my last video, I shared a clip from Kremlin State TV in which they said, after they take Ukraine, the Baltics are next. They predicted that that war would last about 15 minutes, and these are NATO countries. And what the Russians really want is a restoration of their pre-World War I imperial borders, the borders of 1914 Europe. You can see on this map that Finland doesn't exist, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia. This is the map that Russia is talking about when they speak of respecting historical borders. And I never thought they would say this, but they've extended this to saying they want to restore Austria-Hungary. Let me give you a geography refresher of all these countries. Czechia, Slovakia, Austria, Hungary, and maybe Slovenia and Croatia. What Russia wants to do is take these countries, Finland, the Baltics, Poland, Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, and then have their military keep going and force all these countries in Central Europe to combine themselves. Maybe Viktor Orban of Hungary gets to be in charge, and this will then be the neutral buffer state between the Russian Empire and Western Europe. And Russia is even so generous they're going to station troops in Austria-Hungary to make sure the evil West never attacks it. This is what's at stake. This is how the Russians are thinking and talking right now. So here's the letter that President Biden sent to Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. Letter to congressional leadership regarding the need for urgent action to support Ukraine's defense. Here's the paragraph. I want to be clear. Without congressional action, by the end of the year, we will run out of resources to procure more weapons and equipment for Ukraine and to provide equipment from U.S. military stocks. There is no magical pot of funding available to meet this moment. We are out of money and nearly out of time. So the White House told the Congress today Ukraine would be defenseless. There would be thousands of dead unless the promised aid is approved. Now let's wait for the response from Speaker Johnson. And I have to remind everyone, if the West stops supporting Ukraine, that doesn't end the war. That just means Ukraine won't be able to fight as effectively as they are doing today. The war will become more devastating and deadly for Ukrainian soldiers. Ukraine can still win the war, it just won't be as easy, and more Ukrainians will suffer and die. Russia's chances will improve. So here's Speaker Johnson's response on Twitter. The Biden administration has failed to address any of my conference's concerns about the lack of a clear strategy in Ukraine. The strategy is to stop Russia, a path to resolving the conflict. The conflict will be resolved when the Russians go back to their own country and stay there, or a plan for adequately ensuring accountability for aid provided by American taxpayers. This is nonsense. All independent audits and the Inspector General says there is accountability for all aid that goes to Ukraine. Here we go. Meanwhile, the administration is continually ignoring the catastrophe at our own border. House Republicans have resolved that any national security supplemental package must begin with our own border. We believe both issues can be agreed upon if Senate Democrats and the White House will negotiate reasonably. So Speaker Johnson is a hypocrite and a liar, because just last month he put forward a bill for military funding for Israel. This was paired with cuts to the IRS. The Senate isn't going to vote on this. The White House isn't going to sign it. But how can you say we can't help secure Ukraine's borders until we secure our own border, when last month you just said, well, we're going to support Israel's border, defending Israel's border, while ignoring our own? This is arbitrary. Why is Speaker Johnson okay with military aid to Israel without border security, but not Ukraine? Explain to me the difference. I don't get it. And these are two completely unrelated issues. The southern border, our broken immigration system, and the war in Europe. If you want to be arbitrary, you can pair any two issues together and say, we demand the White House and the Democrats do this, otherwise we won't help Ukraine. Speaker Johnson has called legalized abortion in the United States a Holocaust. Speaker Johnson, as the leader of the House Republicans, could easily say, I won't support saving Ukrainian lives until we save the lives of unborn children here in the United States. Unless President Biden supports a nationwide ban on abortion, we won't militarily support Ukraine. You could take any two random issues. You could say, as Speaker Johnson, we can't support Ukraine unless Taylor Swift agrees to go on a date with me. These are not related issues. If there was a clear up or down vote for military aid to Ukraine, supermajorities in both the House and the Senate would vote for it. But one man, Speaker Johnson, currently is blocking that vote. But since he keeps talking about immigration policy, Senate Republicans are now also talking about it. Immigration changes will be part of military aid package for Israel and Ukraine. So there's still hope. I still think something might be passed the week between Christmas and New Year's. For the next 3 weeks, everyone in Congress is going to be fighting, but if Israel wants military aid, then I think the White House is going to insist that aid for Ukraine also be included. Speaker Johnson really wants military aid for Israel. And if Senate Democrats and the White House can just hold strong, then I think we can get through this month. But when it comes to immigration in the United States, I'm going to have an honest conversation with you guys. I'm going to tell you the truth that you'll never hear from politicians, CNN, Fox News, NBC, whatever. I was born in 1984. I'm 39 years old. And here is from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, signed November 6, 1986. Statement on signing the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. Ronald Reagan solved the immigration problem by giving amnesty and citizenship to millions of people who came here illegally, increased border security, and reformed immigration. Problem solved. Ronald Reagan and the Republicans fixed immigration in 1986. This was 36 years ago. But what's this? Pat Buchanan in 1992 challenged the incumbent Republican President George Bush Sr. Here's the headline. The GOP candidate calls the invasion of illegal immigrants a national disgrace as border jumpers wait for him to leave so they can cross. This article is from May of 1992. This was 30 years ago. And we never fixed immigration problems. We never secured our border. This has been a problem my entire life. Why? Why haven't we fixed the problem? Why haven't we sealed up the border? Why haven't we reformed immigration? And it's because big business in the United States doesn't want to fix the problem. Without illegal immigration south of the border, more than likely the United States population wouldn't be growing. Birth rates have been declining for the last 30 years amongst established Americans, whatever you want to call them. And without illegal immigration, labor costs would be much higher and economic growth would be much lower. If you enjoy seeing the stock market go up, if you enjoy seeing your retirement account and 401k go up, this has been accomplished through illegal immigration of tens of millions of migrant workers. So here's the solution. This is the solution that no politician will give. But I can solve illegal immigration. There's only one way. And the one way to solve illegal immigration is mandatory minimum prison sentences for any American who hires an illegal immigrant. So let's do an example. Let's say an American farmer hires 20 illegal immigrants to work on his farm. Mandatory minimums of 6 months in jail for each migrant worker. So that American farmer needs to go to jail for 10 years. Problem solved. If we stop hiring them, if we stop enticing migrant workers to come here for good jobs, they'll stop coming. So the solution is to put in jail American farmers, American small business owners, and suburban housewives who hire illegals to be nannies and to maintain their yards. So this is why in 40 years, illegal immigration in the United States has never been solved. Because the solution is to punish people, not just with fines, but with prison time, who hire illegal immigrants. But nobody in Congress is ever going to do this because everyone likes the price of their avocados to be affordable. America is addicted to cheap labor on farms and in small businesses and construction and people who cut our lawns and nanny our children. So we're not having an honest debate in the United States. I would love to have one. I would love to get serious and solve this problem. But that's not what House Republicans are trying to do. They're trying to weaken support for Ukraine by tying it to an unsolvable issue, an issue they never intend to solve. Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House under George Bush in 2004. The Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House in 2016 under Donald Trump, and they never fixed immigration. Because they never intend to. It's just a political debate point to beat up on the Democrats in elections. So here is National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan saying that he's asked the question, are you saying any member of Congress who votes against aid to Ukraine is voting for Vladimir Putin?
I believe that any member of Congress who does not support funding for Ukraine is voting for an outcome that will make it easier for Putin to prevail. That is, a vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality. That's not speaking to someone's motive, why they chose to vote against it. That's just speaking to the outcome of their vote. A vote against supplemental funding for Ukraine will hurt Ukraine and help Russia. It will hurt democracy and help dictators. And we think that that is not the right lesson of history and that every member, Democrat and Republican, should vote to support this.
It doesn't matter the motivation of Speaker Johnson or House Republicans. Voting against Ukraine is voting for fascism in Europe, voting to weaken democracy around the world. Here is Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who has been pretty good the last 2 years about supporting Ukraine, changing his song, and now all he wants to talk about is immigration here in the United States.
Republicans are divided on Ukraine. Republicans are 100% behind strong border security. If you want aid to Ukraine, we need to control our southern border. We're having, Dana, 9,000 people a day come for the last week. There's no end to this wave of illegal immigration. You have to change your asylum laws and your parole laws to stop the flow. So I will not vote for any aid until we secure our own border. Reform asylum, reform parole is possible to do. Democrats don't want to do it. All Republicans want to do it. I'm not helping Ukraine until we help ourselves.
I'm not helping Ukraine until we solve the problem that we have failed to solve for over 40 years. That's pretty selfish and irresponsible for him to say. I agree there are problems with our asylum and parole laws that could be changed, but the extremists here in the United States want to hunt down and deport tens of millions of people. I live in Las Vegas. There's a very large Hispanic population, and elected officials around here are not going to support or vote for any bill in which their grandma, because the second and third generations are U.S. citizens now, they're never going to support their grandma being deported back to Guatemala. This is an impossible issue, and it's irresponsible for Republicans to tie it to military aid to Ukraine. And here's who's suffering. This is a Ukrainian soldier proudly wearing an American flag on his cap, believing that America is the arsenal of democracy, will do the right thing, to continue supporting him, to continue allowing him to defend his children, his family, his country from the Russians. So, as an American, as a veteran, I'm incredibly disappointed with the Republican Party that they would do this, play politics to try and score political points against the Democrats, while people who support us are currently fighting and dying on the front lines. I also want to share this video of a military chaplain from Mariupol. He opened the largest shelter and rehabilitation center for orphans and homeless people in Ukraine called Pilgrim Republic. He has adopted 36 underprivileged children into his own family. Currently, 11 of them are defending on the front lines. This is a very powerful video, and I think people need to listen to his message.
I'm Ukrainian pastor. I'm Ukrainian chaplain. 11 my children in front line right now. One of my daughter was killed in Mariupol, in my city. Many my friends was killed. Many my church members was killed. 5 my sons was wounded. First of all, I want to say big thanks for American people, for American nation, for American politics, for staying with us through this Russian invasion. Big thanks from me, from my nation. But second, I want to say, please, don't trust Russian propaganda who say Putin is pro-Christian and pro-family guy. No, he's KGB, demonic leader for demonic system. This is fighting in Ukraine. This is the battle not about land, not about gas, not about oil, not about language. I am Russian speaking language all time. I never had problem with this. This is a battle about freedom. Ukraine fighting right now and pay huge, terrible price for freedom. I want to say big thanks for staying with us. Tell you, brothers and sisters, American nation, please don't trust Russian propaganda and stay with us. We really need.
So something could still pass by the end of this month. Congress always does everything at the last possible second. But if House Republicans betray Ukraine and betray democracy around the world, then the only way to settle this is with the November election of next year, 2024. And I personally on this channel will be saying for the next 10 months, you can't vote for any Republican in Congress as long as they refuse to support democracy and our allies around the world. This is a single issue channel. I don't care about any other political issue right now because to me personally this is the most important issue. Whether or not these wars in Europe will continue for decades to come, whether or not there will be a nuclear conflict between Russia and NATO, everything depends today on Ukraine holding the line and getting their territory back. When we switch over to the military map, honestly, there's not going to be a lot of changes the next couple months. Yes, there's still fighting in Kherson, still fighting in Zaporizhia, plenty of fighting in the Donbass region, but I don't see Ukraine or Russia making any kind of significant breakthrough in the near term. And the number one reason has to be the weather. Let me share with you this clip of Ukrainian defenders evacuating their wounded, and just look at the mud.
Що там, хлопці, хто ходить? Вже не ходиш? На турнікеті, да? Так. Давай. Давай! Турнікет є, буде рот. Та він залізе, залазь. Тяжкий у тебе? Пацани, давайте самі, хто сам. Что у тебя? Говори. Нога? Вот где нога? Что? Давай руку. Тяни. Давай. Вот сюда, на носилки. Размотай.
Wow. Let's get to some good news for Ukraine. Partisans kill 24 Russian soldiers with poison treats. Ordnance is not the only way Ukrainians have been eliminating Russian occupying troops. a spat of poisonings by suspected partisans has taken its toll on Moscow's forces as well. 24 Russian troops were given poison-laced food by two nice girls at a military checkpoint in Simferopol, Crimea. Unverified reports on Russian media channels said the two partisans approached the soldiers with vodka, fish, sausage, bread, and cheese. They told the guards that they wanted to thank the boys for everything, for protecting them. The guys took the vodka and food and drank it with their colleagues, and they were poisoned. 24 Russian soldiers killed, 11 more hospitalized. They did it with arsenic. Do what you gotta do. This is good news. Ukraine says they've exported 7 million tons via the Black Sea corridor. So in June, when Russia pulled out of the Black Sea grain deal, Ukraine adjusted their route, cleared some mines, and ships are getting in and out now. Ukraine is getting their grain exports out. And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but there's nothing stopping Ukraine from importing by sea now. Before, the Russians were inspecting all the ships as part of the Black Sea grain deal, but since they pulled out of that, ships no longer have to stop in the Bosphorus Straits, Turkey, to be inspected by the Russians. So if Ukraine does want to import goods, products, military equipment, they can do this by sea now, as their ships are getting in and out. I'm not saying they're doing that. That would be risky. The Russians, if they found out, would make a pretty big deal of that, but it could be happening. Here's a funny clip. Once again, a Russian upset with the United States, and they choose to take it out on their Apple products.
Мне не стыдно за то, что я русский. Путин мой президент, а это мой ответ санкциям.
Joke's on him, that phone was made in China. But something really funny about this video is he's wearing a Columbia sportswear jacket, and Columbia Sportswear is an American company, so if he's gonna nail his iPhone to the wall, he might as well nail his jacket and his Levi's blue jeans as well, because these are all American products. Last clip I have for you is just a reminder of what every Ukrainian defender is currently fighting for. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.